Welcome to Popternative, where we dive into topical discussions from the worlds of pop culture, social media, and sports. Here is your host, Peter Remoliotis, aka PD Beats.
Hello and welcome to Popternative. This is, of course, the podcast and talk show where we have digital discussions, worlds of TV, film, pop culture, news, everything really depending on the guest talk about it all. As always, I'm your host, Peter Remoliotis. On social media, you know me as PD Beats. We are speaking to a filmmaker. His new movie, Adverse, is right around the corner. It just came out. Great film. Brian A. Metcalf is with us. Brian, thank you for taking the time.
Thank you for having me, Peter.
I mean, we'll get into the movie, which is excellent. But before we get into that, did you know that you were going to always wear many hats in the entertainment industry and not just write, not just produce, not just direct, Brian?
I got a pretty good sense that in order to survive in this industry, at least starting off, you'd have to wear many hats.
Yeah.
Even if you didn't want to, just saying, I'm just going to be a director, well, what projects are coming to you that you're going to direct? You know, you have to get your own projects up and going, so you have to write your own projects, you have to produce your own projects to get your project off the ground, to eventually direct it.
Absolutely.
And sometimes you have to act in it if somebody doesn't want to be an actor for a certain role or something like that. And so it all comes down to that, is that you want to be as multiverse as possible to survive in this industry.
Absolutely. And sometimes, you know, learning new things, whether it's like editing or behind the camera, sometimes it's kind of not glamorous. What did you kind of do when you had to kind of learn things that were kind of maybe complicated right away, and you weren't maybe able to adapt? Because it's always going to be learning experiences and learning curves, Brian.
Right. Well, it's all a learning process, and I actually started out in post-production before I did the actual filmmaking. I was a creative director of a company, and I used to do editing for EPKs and music videos, and, you know, I directed all those types of things in commercials, and I was a creative director for DVD, menu designs, and everything, all the different things for the studios. So that was one great way that I got to start out and also doing visual effects for feature films. It was a great learning process for me. So before I moved on to doing the actual directing of the films and everything. And so you have to learn all aspects and pick up as much as you can, so you're as you're as well versed as you can possibly be and as educated as you can be when it comes time to step on to do the camera work.
Oh, absolutely. And we're talking about your new film, Adverse. I mean, you know, when people watch this film, I mean, it's very simple. There's a lot going on in this film. There's a lot of stuff going on. Is that safe to say that that's something in mind when you're writing, where you have the abilities to create these complex characters and you have the ability to create these complex kind of situations? Because there is a lot going on in Adverse, Brian.
I think that, well, for this in particular, it was... You try to write a lot of complexity to the characters, and there's a lot of stuff that didn't make it onto the camera or onto the screen that we shot about each, development of each and every one of the characters. And, you want to make your character as complex as possible, because it's boring to have a character that's just black and white. You want to give them multi-layers and stuff like that, even if it didn't show up on camera. So, well, you hopefully get a sense that there's something more to this character. It's more of a backstory. For example, the character of Jake, he's a hardened criminal, but you see that he has a family. And so it makes you question or wonder certain parts about what's his background and what made him the way that he is and why is he doing what he's doing and stuff.
For sure. Talk a little bit about what we can expect with the cast for this film. Adverse has an unbelievable cast. Talk a little bit about what you were kind of looking for. And for my viewers and my listeners, I mean, talk about this amazing cast. It is a star-studded cast, Brian.
Well, we were very fortunate to get this cast. And what we tried to do is we tried to take cast from multiple different generations. We have Mickey Rourke, who's been around forever, since the 80s and so forth like that. He's been able to get interest from every single, generation, from the wrestler to Sin City, to all the way back to the 80s of doing Barfly, 90s and Barfly, and 80s and doing, other films, To Live and Die in LA. All these different things that basically, Diner, all these different things. So he was one of the people. And then we have Jake T. Austin, who's younger generation, who's known for Wizards of Waverly Place. Yep. And then we have Penelope Ann Miller, who's known for working on great movies like Awakenings and just all these different diverse films and everything like that. Sean Astin, who's, I grew up watching as a kid, from Goonies to now, in Stranger Things. So, and Thomas Nicholas, who was in the American Pie films, and he was also in Rookie of the Year. Like, it's just great to have this amazing cast that I grew up watching, and to put them all together in one film where you normally wouldn't see someone from Wizards of Waverly Place along with someone like Mickey Rourke. And it was just great to, combine them all together and see what comes out of it, if that makes sense.
Oh, it does for sure. The obvious answer to this question, Brian, is, you hope people enjoy it. You hope people, tell their friends about it. But diving into it a little bit more deeply, Brian, when people watch Adverse, what are you hoping they get out of this film?
I actually hope that it makes people think to some degree. I mean, the theme of this film is about choices and the decisions people make, and the repercussions and what happens based off of the decisions made.
Yep.
Mickey Rourke's character, who plays Caden, he basically has lived this life of gangster, and towards the end of his life, and now having cancer, starts to, have regrets as to why he chose this type of lifestyle, if that makes sense.
Absolutely.
So it's one of those types of things where he looks back at his life and realizes he made some bad decisions and everything like that. He just didn't know how to get out of that situation.
Oh, for sure.
So hopefully it makes people think to some degree, too, about the decisions they make and how it can affect them the rest of their lives.
The film there's a lot, like I said at the beginning of the interview, there's a lot going on in this film. I don't know if you want to disagree with me or not, but there seems to be a lot of genres kind of going on. There's action, there's drama, crime drama and everything. I mean, is it safe to say that there's a lot of films right now, Brian, like it or not, that are becoming these genre-bending movies that kind of have a lot of kind of genres in them and not just limiting themselves to that box, Brian?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, Quentin Tarantino is very known for that. You look at Kill Bill, and he uses slow-mo scenes that are that of horror, and then he uses faster-paced different things, and he mixes around his different genres as well. And I think it's great because it says nobody says you have to be stuck in one type of genre.
No.
If you're on camera and you have a scary moment, a frightening moment, you might want to tilt the camera to make it a Dutch angle so it feels like something is off to the viewer. Or if you want to make it a dramatic moment, you push in for the close-ups for the emotional scenes and things along those lines. So I think that genre bending is very important in saying, hey, I'm not going to typecast myself into one specific way of how to shoot this. You use whatever you can to get the shot and to portray the emotion that you need to portray. Absolutely.
One more question before we quickly wrap up. I mean, it's one of those things, too, where it's not your first film. You've been doing this for quite some time. You've been wearing many hats for a good amount of time. But there's always going to be learning experiences on projects. For you specifically on Adverse, what were some learning experiences for Brian A. Metcalf that you can kind of take to your next project?
Oh, goodness. With every project that I have, I learn a tremendous amount. For this in particular, I got to understand, for example, Mickey's acting style and how he did what he did and why he chose what he chose to do. I got to learn certain things in terms of lighting, new lighting techniques from my cinematographer.
Yeah.
Or I got to learn, just different things that you pick up all the time. It's a great way of just always learning and figuring things out. And that's the thing is that you don't stop learning no matter how long you've been in this business. You have to keep evolving and picking up each new experience and working with that and building up on that.
Absolutely. Well, Brian, thank you so much for taking some time with us. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
And the film is out now. People can watch it right now.
Yeah, they can see it in theaters. You can go to adversethefilm.com website, see where it's playing at, and it will be out on DVD and VOD on March 9th through Lionsgate and Grindstone.
And where can people follow you on social media to keep up to date with everything, Brian?
So I'm on Instagram and Twitter and Facebook. You can look me up for B.A. Metcalf1 on Instagram and Facebook, and then for Twitter, it's B.A. Metcalf.
Amazing. Well, seriously, congrats with Adverse. It's fantastic, and all the best for future projects as well, Brian.
Thank you so much, and thank you for having me.
No problem. This has been Popternative, youtube.com/Popternative for previous episodes. Until next time, this is Brian A. Metcalf from Adverse and PD Beats signing out. Enjoy the rest of your week.
Thank you for tuning in to Popternative. Make sure to check out our past episodes of Popternative on YouTube. Be sure to like Popternative on Facebook and follow us on Twitter.
This has been an Autograph Communications production.